report the chaos. We reveal the agenda.
It's midnight in the ruined neighborhood of El Fasher, Darfur. A family huddles in the dark, listening as drones thunder overhead, their ominous hum a constant reminder of the danger. The lights have long gone, leaving them in a profound and unsettling darkness. They whisper amongst themselves, their voices barely audible above the distant sounds of conflict. Will we survive the next hour? This harrowing scene is not from a distant war zone of the past. This is today's Sudan, a nation tragically grappling with a profound and devastating conflict that has consumed its people and land. Since April 15, 2023, the country of Sudan has been gripped by a full-scale war, a brutal confrontation between the national army, known as the Sudanese Armed Forces, and a powerful paramilitary force, the Rapid Support Forces. This conflict has plunged the nation into an unprecedented crisis. The alliance of a former transitional government, which had promised a path to democracy, tragically collapsed. The military then seized control, leading to the paramilitary force rebelling against this new authority. In this devastating power struggle, innocent civilians have been caught directly in the crossfire, enduring unimaginable suffering. The two main actors in this devastating conflict are the Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, commanded by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also widely known as Hemeti. These two factions represent the primary forces vying for control. Both factions vehemently claim legitimacy, asserting their right to govern and control the nation. Yet despite their claims, both the SAF and the RSF are accused of committing widespread atrocities and severe human rights abuses against the Sudanese people, leaving a trail of devastation and suffering. To truly understand the current crisis and its deep roots, we must delve into decades of complex history. This includes examining the long-standing marginalization of regions like Darfur, where ethnic tensions have simmered for years, and the contentious extraction of vital natural resources, which has often fueled conflict and inequality. We must also consider the enduring legacy of the Darfur conflict, which began in 2003 and saw widespread violence, and the fragile state of a nation still recovering from the overthrow of Omar al-Bashir in 2019. These historical events have profoundly shaped the current landscape of instability and conflict. When Omar al-Bashir was deposed in 2019, a transitional civilian military government initially took over, offering a glimmer of hope for a democratic future. However, patience quickly ran out amidst a severe economic collapse and numerous competing factions vying for power, each with their own agendas and ambitions. Then, in April 2023, the spark ignited, plunging the nation into its current devastating conflict. This sudden eruption of violence marked a tragic turning point, shattering any remaining hopes for a peaceful transition and engulfing Sudan in a full-scale war. In a flash, the war rapidly expanded beyond the capital city of Khartoum, pulling entire regions into its destructive grip. Areas such as Darfur, Kordofan, the east and the north became active battlegrounds, illustrating the widespread and devastating reach of the conflict across the nation. By mid-2025, the humanitarian crisis had escalated dramatically, with more than 12 million people forcibly displaced from their homes. These desperate individuals and families were forced to seek safety wherever they could find it, often in overcrowded camps or across international borders, facing immense hardship and uncertainty. Furthermore, The scale of human suffering reached staggering levels, with over 30 million people, which constitutes more than half of Sudan's entire population, in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. This includes essential aid such as food, water, shelter, and medical care, highlighting the profound impact of the conflict on everyday lives. Yet, despite the immense and undeniable scale of suffering, the world's attention regrettably drifted away from this escalating crisis. This lack of sustained international focus has left millions vulnerable and without adequate support, exacerbating an already dire situation and making recovery even more challenging. This crisis is now unequivocally recognized as one of the worst on the planet, demanding urgent global recognition and immediate, decisive action. The international community must acknowledge the severity of the situation and mobilize resources to address the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Sudan. So the critical question now is, how did Sudan descend into such profound chaos, a state of utter devastation and despair? And where are we heading as a nation and as a global community? This question weighs heavily on the minds of many, seeking answers and a path forward. Are we moving towards a fragile but hopeful peace, a complete and irreversible collapse of the state, or something even worse for the nation and its resilient people? The future remains uncertain, with each path carrying profound implications for Sudan's destiny and the lives of its citizens. As Expert A states with a clear and somber tone, if you look at the power vacuum in Khartoum and the collapse of institutions, you'll see the war was almost inevitable. This perspective underscores the deep-seated structural issues that contributed to the eruption of this devastating conflict. In this film, we'll meticulously track the shifting battle lines, uncovering the immense human cost of this conflict, revealing the hidden numbers that quantify the suffering, and exploring the various scenarios that could shape Sudan's future, and indeed, the broader geopolitical landscape of the world. We aim to provide a comprehensive understanding of this complex crisis. Whose hand ultimately holds the next power in Sudan? Will it be the Sudanese Armed Forces, the SAF, or the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF? And crucially, will the civilians who have suffered so much and endured unimaginable hardships finally win their struggle for peace and stability, or tragically lose everything in this brutal conflict? In the early days of the war, the RSF swept into Khartoum, targeting military bases and seizing strategic ground. The SAF regrouped, and today the map of Sudan is split, reflecting the ongoing struggle for control. According to analysts at the Council on Foreign Relations, more than 14 million people have been displaced, making this the world's largest displacement crisis. Let's zoom in on the Western theater, where Darfur, once already war-scarred, is now again engulfed in conflict. The city of El Fasher is under siege. The RSF has built sandberms around it, effectively creating a kill box. Civilians say they can't flee, and vital aid fails to reach them, exacerbating the humanitarian catastrophe. Satellite imagery analyzed by the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab shows mass killings in the region, painting a grim picture of the violence. In central Sudan, Kordofan is now a critical front line, with intense fighting reshaping the landscape. The RSF allied with the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North to gain cross-border access into South Sudan. The SAF still holds key towns like El Obeid, but these strategic locations are under constant siege. This is no mere domestic battle. Regional actors are stepping in, bringing mercenaries, foreign weaponry, and drones. It's become multipolar, with various external forces influencing the conflict's trajectory. And speaking of drones, civilians describe devastating airstrikes on hospitals and markets, causing immense suffering. One documented attack on a hospital in Darfur tragically killed at least 70 people, highlighting the brutal impact on non-combatants. As the fighting rages, each side uses food, water, and shelter as weapons, deepening the humanitarian crisis. A UN fact-finding mission stated the conflict is escalating and aid being weaponized, a grave concern for the international community. A staggering detail: in North Darfur, children are eating animal fodder paste called ambaz to survive, a desperate measure. The conflict has led to massive displacement, with people fleeing to neighboring countries such as Chad, South Sudan, and Egypt. These countries are already facing their own crises, and the influx of refugees is straining their resources. The humanitarian situation is deteriorating rapidly, with civilians facing widespread hunger, disease, and violence. What happens when the fighters leave, and there are millions of survivors, but no infrastructure left? That's the million-dollar question, one that demands urgent attention and a comprehensive plan for recovery. The future of Sudan and its people hangs precariously in the balance, requiring global solidarity and action. The international community must prioritize peace and humanitarian aid to prevent further loss and suffering. The path to recovery will be long and arduous, but the resilience of the Sudanese people offers a glimmer of hope. Their strength in the face of adversity is a testament to the human spirit, deserving of our unwavering support. The world watches, and the call for peace and stability in Sudan echoes louder than ever. It is a call for humanity to act, to rebuild, and to ensure a future free from conflict for all. Thank you for watching this important update on the conflict in Sudan. For more information and ways to help, please visit reputable humanitarian organizations. The war in Sudan is not just about bullets and bombs. It has profoundly rewritten daily life for millions, creating an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Let's delve into the critical humanitarian dimension, where the numbers paint a stark picture of suffering and displacement. As of April 2025, over 12 million people have been displaced from their homes, with a staggering half of them being women and children. Highlighting the immense vulnerability of these populations, over 30 million people in Sudan now desperately need assistance, which accounts for nearly 2/3 of the entire population, underscoring the widespread impact of the conflict. Food insecurity has reached acute levels across the nation, with particularly dire warnings from UNICEF. In North Darfur alone, UNICEF projects that 150,000 children are likely to suffer from severe acute malnutrition this year, a devastating consequence of the ongoing crisis and disrupted food supply chains. This represents a significant increase in malnutrition cases compared to previous years, with many areas now surpassing emergency thresholds for acute malnutrition. Across various regions, long queues of people, including vulnerable women and young children, can be seen waiting patiently for essential aid distribution under the harsh, relentless sun. The scene is often dusty and visibly shows signs of extreme hardship, with individuals carrying empty containers or bags, reflecting their urgent and desperate need for assistance. These images are a stark reminder of the daily struggle for survival faced by millions, as they rely on humanitarian aid for their most basic necessities, often traveling long distances to reach distribution points. The conflict has led to the widespread destruction of critical infrastructure, including essential health facilities. A partially collapsed or severely damaged hospital building is a common sight, with debris scattered around, rendering it non-functional. Such structures symbolize the complete breakdown of essential health services, leaving countless individuals without access to medical care. This destruction exacerbates the humanitarian crisis, as even basic medical attention becomes a luxury, contributing to preventable deaths and the spread of diseases. When health services collapse, when roads are blocked, and when basic infrastructure is destroyed, you inevitably get multiple layers of crisis. This includes the rapid spread of diseases like cholera, severe malnutrition, and widespread epidemics that overwhelm any remaining healthcare capacity. The inability to access medical treatment, coupled with poor sanitation and lack of clean water, creates a perfect storm for public health disasters, further endangering the lives of millions already struggling to survive. Indeed, a severe cholera outbreak has surged across Darfur and Kordofan, with over 65,200 cases and 1,700 deaths reported across 12 states since the outbreak was declared in August 2024. This alarming spread highlights the critical need for immediate medical intervention and improved sanitation. Healthcare workers are tirelessly working in makeshift clinics and medical tents, striving to contain the disease amidst challenging conditions, but resources are severely stretched, making their efforts incredibly difficult. Economically, Sudan has been utterly shattered by the ongoing conflict. Key sectors like oil and agriculture, which form the very backbone of the nation's economy and provide livelihoods for millions, are severely disrupted. The fragile transition from civilian rule to war made the economy incredibly vulnerable, leading to a rapid decline. Oil production has plummeted by approximately 50% since the conflict began, and the agricultural sector, which supports millions of households, has seen a significant drop in cereal production, threatening food security on a national scale. Analysts estimate that the economic damage incurred during just the early weeks of the conflict ran into billions of dollars, a figure that continues to grow as the war persists. Projections indicate that Sudan's GDP could shrink by an alarming 42% if the conflict continues through 2025, with industry, services, and agriculture all contracting significantly. This economic devastation translates into widespread job losses, with the agricultural sector alone expected to lose around 700,000 jobs, pushing millions more into extreme poverty and exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, the world's largest displacement crisis is placing an immense strain on neighboring states, which are struggling to cope with the influx of millions of refugees. The EU pledged over €270 million in 2025 to assist with this crisis, but even this substantial amount falls far short of the actual need. Countries like Chad, South Sudan, and Egypt are hosting millions of Sudanese refugees, stretching their resources and infrastructure to breaking point. This regional impact underscores the far-reaching consequences of the conflict, extending well beyond Sudan's borders. Amidst all this devastation, the humanitarian response plan for Sudan, which requires a staggering US $4.2 billion to address the urgent needs, is only 27% funded. This severe funding gap means that critical aid cannot reach those who need it most, leaving millions vulnerable. What happens when humanitarian assistance fails to materialize while a brutal war grinds on relentlessly? The consequences are catastrophic, leading to increased suffering, preventable deaths, and a deepening of the crisis as basic necessities like food, water, and shelter become increasingly scarce. The struggle to provide adequate assistance is evident in the sight of partially delivered aid convoys or warehouses with severely limited supplies. These visuals highlight the immense gap between the overwhelming need and the available resources, showcasing the scarcity and the monumental challenge of aid distribution in a conflict zone. Aid workers often face bureaucratic obstacles and attacks, further impeding their ability to deliver life-saving supplies, leaving many communities without essential support and facing dire circumstances. Frustrated aid workers are frequently seen, perhaps engaged in intense discussions or poring over maps, their expressions conveying the immense challenges and the profound emotional toll of their work. They grapple with impossible choices, limited resources, and the constant threat of violence, all while trying to alleviate the suffering of millions. The scene captures the deeply human element of this humanitarian crisis, highlighting the dedication and despair of those on the front lines who witness firsthand the devastating impact of the war and the unmet needs of the population. That's one of the most dangerous realities the world is currently ignoring, as the conflict continues to rage with no end in sight. And while we collectively ask, where is the peace? And when will this suffering cease? That's precisely where the final, tragic act of this unfolding humanitarian drama begins, leaving a lasting scar on the nation and its people, and posing a profound question about global responsibility and intervention. With the war now in its third year, the conflict in Sudan has escalated into the world's largest and most devastating humanitarian crisis, displacing millions and causing widespread human rights abuses. What are the likely scenarios for Sudan's future? Will one side achieve victory, or will the country splinter into fragmented entities? Could foreign intervention fundamentally reshape its trajectory? Expert D states there are three broad paths: a negotiated settlement, a frozen stalemate, or a full collapse into failed state fragmentation. All of these possibilities carry grave consequences for the region and beyond. Let's explore each of these potential outcomes in detail, considering the complex dynamics and international implications at play. Scenario 1 envisions a peace deal, where international mediators successfully enforce a ceasefire, leading to a power-sharing agreement and the resumption of aid flows for rebuilding. However, current diplomatic efforts face significant challenges. Even the recent London summit failed to achieve a joint communiqué, highlighting the deep disagreements between key actors. This failure underscores the difficulty in uniting international efforts and securing a lasting peace, leaving millions vulnerable to continued conflict and displacement. Scenario 2 describes a protracted stalemate where fighting persists region by region, with no clear victor emerging from the conflict. This prolonged devastation would deepen the humanitarian crisis, further fragmenting Sudan and creating a dangerous security vacuum. Such a vacuum could invite extremist groups, destabilizing the entire Horn of Africa and causing ripple effects across neighboring states. The conflict's regional expansion would strain resources, exacerbate existing crises, and potentially draw more countries into the fray, escalating the humanitarian catastrophe. Scenario 3 is a full collapse, where central governance disintegrates entirely, allowing warring factions to carve out mini-states. In this dire situation, neighboring countries might intervene directly or indirectly, further intensifying the conflict and worsening the humanitarian crisis. Rights experts warn of widespread war crimes, including summary executions and mass killings, particularly in the El Fasher region, indicating a complete breakdown of law and order. The international community has documented numerous reports of ethnic cleansing and mass killings in Darfur and other regions, underscoring the urgent need for accountability. What's the global stake in Sudan? Its strategic location on the Red Sea, linking Egypt, the Horn of Africa, and Gulf states, makes it a critical geopolitical area. If the war drags on, the ripple effects will reach far beyond Khartoum, impacting global trade routes and energy supplies. Foreign powers like the UAE, Russia, and Turkey seek to expand their influence, potentially turning the conflict into a proxy war with wider international implications. So, what can the world do? First, diplomatic pressure and mediation are crucial to stop the fighting immediately. Second, ensure safe and unfettered humanitarian access to reach those in desperate need, as millions face acute food insecurity and limited vital services. Third, hold perpetrators of human rights abuses and war crimes accountable for their actions, to prevent further atrocities. Fourth, prepare for long-term reconstruction efforts now, focusing on governance, security, and economic recovery, rather than waiting until the conflict ends. Expert A emphasizes that aid alone is insufficient. Effective governance, robust security, and a clear strategy are essential to break the cycle of conflict. Without these foundational elements, the cycle of violence and instability will inevitably repeat, perpetuating suffering. Civilians in Sudan do not have the luxury of waiting for the world to act. Their lives hang in the balance every single day. As we close, remember that the war in Sudan is not a distant problem. It serves as a stark warning to us all. When governance fails, when power vacuums widen, and when the world looks away, the worst possible outcomes often materialize. Will we look away this time, or will we heed the warning and act decisively to prevent further catastrophe? Thank you for joining me on ATM.